Welcome to Spiritual Vacancy, the space where we stop running from the void and start filling it. I'm Brooke Ann, I'm a professional psychic medium, and in each episode, we dive deep into the practices, stories, and insights that turn spiritual hunger into spiritual wholeness. If you've been feeling like something is missing, you're in the right place. Let's fill the gap together, and your journey starts now. Hey, good morning. Today I am talking about soul contracts and our blueprint for our life before we are even born. Do you believe that our life is predestined? Everything that is happening to us is meant to happen, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it, right? So I kind of have an issue with that fully. I don't know if I completely agree with everything on our life is predestined. I do feel like a lot of things are predestined. I can't agree with that. But a soul blueprint is an individual's pre-birth personal true north chart, right? It's a design of our soul, pretty much, essentially. And it's a soul contract, which is a collaborative agreement made with other souls before birth to learn lessons through relationships, often involving karmic, soulmate, or twin flame connections. Which, I mean, I can agree with that. I do believe a lot of the relationships in our life are supposed to be, whether it's our parents or our children, they can be challenging. Siblings, other family members or friends. Sometimes I wonder, why some people have the best parents and then others, you wouldn't even know they had a mom and dad. They're so distant from them. It's like night and day, and you kind of wonder, why does one have such a great relationship and one doesn't? What is the soul's purpose? What else is the other person working on that has a great relationship with their parents that the other one isn't, right? So some of that always fascinates me, just how different a lot of our lives are, but yet they're still parallel a lot of times. So I'm going to read over some things about the key aspects of our blueprint, our soul's blueprint, which it's an energetic, unique blueprint similar to a fingerprint representing an individual's highest purpose and potential. It acts as a guide to help navigate life, especially when feeling lost and assists in recognizing one's true path. The connection, it can be accessed through meditation, stillness, and looking at life as a symbolic journey. I think a lot of times we feel like our hardships are part of our soul's purpose, but then do we actually ever honor the good stuff? All of our achievements, what we grow, is that part of our soul contract too, to be good? I feel like a lot of times we kind of highlight the negative side of things or the tough sides, but what if you're amazing at what you do? What if certain things are just handed to you? What if you just go somewhere and you always get food? Like my husband, people give him free food all the time. And for me, I would probably accidentally pay extra. I don't think I've ever gotten free food anywhere. I've gotten like where I check out and I'm like, oh my God, I paid for somebody else's food, which was like 10 times higher than I should have paid. But I'm like, what is the soul contract with that? Or is that just part of our karma from a past life? Maybe my husband was like starving in a past life, so this life, everybody's feeding him, right? But it is interesting when you start looking at the differences. Um, so a soul contract or a blueprint is a sacred contract or plan that's created before birth. So a lot of times we think like it is our soul with God or with a higher power or with our angels or guides or whoever you choose to think it is. And we're going over, I always imagine it like house plans, like you're looking over your house plans, looking at your life. And essentially, people believe that every part of our life is predestined. I'm not sure I believe that. There are issues with that I have a hard time acknowledging. Do I feel like relationships are part of our soul contract? Definitely. Do I feel like the work we do in this life is that part of our soul contract? Definitely, because I've seen too many people want to be something at a younger age and they actually achieve it. But I think that's part of your soul to actually do what your soul is made to do, like what that is in this life, right? My sister was always a teacher. And I mean, she always wanted to be a teacher. I'm sorry. She had a daycare and she always talked about teaching kids. And she's a teacher now. And she had a daycare out of her house for years. And what I find fascinating is that's what she does. I wasn't like that. I had no idea I wanted to be a medium. I had no idea I wanted to own a restaurant. Everything in my life just happened as it flowed, as it went, as things changed in my life, I went with it. There was no need for me or drive to be like, I want to work with food. No, I literally started waiting tables because my friend's mom told me to get a job waiting tables and said I'd be good at it, and I was unemployed for a month and I didn't know what to do and I had bills to pay and I was single. I was 21 years old. I had no idea. It wasn't a drive for me. I didn't go to college. I didn't graduate. There was no there just was no drive. I could say I always worked in food though, because I worked at a bakery at the age of 16. And so I've always been in around food. I love food because I will always continually be around food in some sense or another. But even me being a medium, I still co-own the restaurant with my business partner, Michelle. And that will probably be for however long, right? For the rest of my life. Um, so I do think some of that is predestined, but not for everybody. And maybe that's part of my soul contract is to figure out where I belong because I ignored my spiritual abilities for years and years and years. I dumbed it down with drugs, and that was also my choice. So that kind of gets me back into, I don't think we all choose our destiny to the fullest, right? I think there's definitely pieces of it that we do honor and we do have a soul contract with, but I don't think it's like the way that we die. I don't think it's certain things around us like the drugs or alcoholism or things like that that we're doing because they're kind of like human, right? They're man-made stuff. Those are part of the human experience, not the soul's experience. So I feel like you can change your trajectory of your life by certain decisions that you make. You can stay in bad relationships even though you know it's bad. You're choosing to do that. You're choosing to do drugs. You're choosing to live a different lifestyle that you know you can't keep up, or vice versa, however it might be, right? But I don't think that's part of our soul's contract. I don't think people in the blueprint, like imagining, you're standing up there with God and you're like, yeah, I want to like, have MS for years and suffer. And I also would like to be diabetic. Not two though, God. I'd like to be diabetic one, where I suffer from the day I'm born. I would also like to die in a fiery car crash. I just, I just can't imagine that because I feel like there's so much other free will than just what we think is happening, right? Because there's also the part of, so say somebody's driving on a freeway and you're going to a birthday party or just trying to get home from work and somebody's tire flies off their car. That's negligence on the person driving the car with the loose tire. How would that interject in your life? Why would that happen? Why? It's so random. Why would that be like, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna die by tire by windshield? That's how I'm gonna go, Jesus and God. That's how I'm gonna leave this world. That's hard for me to wrap my head around that somebody would choose to go out that way. Or is it free will where that guy didn't want to get his tire fixed? Knowing there's a problem, he chose to ignore it, which yet changed the life of somebody else who maybe had other plans in their soul contract. Maybe they weren't even done with their soul contract. Their karmic, their lessons, things like that. Maybe that was a freak accident and that's what happened. And I feel like that can happen because we're human. So there's like this story, just for an example, there's this lady on TikTok and she's a big influencer. And her and her husband were building a brand new house. And as they were building the house, they were documenting all of it, right? And they were putting a pool in. And everybody in the comments during the build of their house was saying, you need to get a pool fence. You have two small children. You need to put a pool fence in. And she just kept denying it. Then they ended up getting quotes. She didn't like the way it looked, so she never got a pool fence in. And during this time, after a house is built and they're living there, a lot of people kept commenting, you need to have a pool fence in for your kids. She never did it, and her son drowned in her pool. She was out with friends, and her husband was home, and he didn't know, and he passed away. And a lot of the people on there were saying on the comments, you should have put a pool fence in. And somebody had mentioned she didn't like the way the pool fence looked, so she didn't want to put it in. I don't know if that's true or accurate. I'm not going to say if that is or not. That was just some of the comments I read. But could she have saved her son's life if she had been proactive, if she had done what people suggested, if she didn't care about how it looked in her new house? Would she still have her son here? Could she have prevented that? Or do you think that's part of her soul contract to go through the grief of losing, I think her son was four, a 4-year-old child? Or is that part of the human experience and being negligent of knowing what's right and what's wrong and still doing the wrong thing? That's where I get kind of mixed up on it, where I'm like, I don't think that's part of anybody's soul contract anymore at that point. I feel like that's just free will. She knew she should have put it in. She had quotes to put it in. She knew that could be an actual issue, that could be something that could occur. And she still decided to not do it after months. So I feel like free will plays a huge part in our soul contract as well. Because I think a lot of times our soul contract is more with us. Like we can have deja vu connections. We can be working on ourselves. How do we overcome stuff? Push through emotional growth or bad relationships, karmic relationships, and how we react to them and not respond, right? And that could even be with our own mind. Maybe your soul contract in this life is getting out of your own way, removing your own fucking thoughts, removing your own bullshit, and getting out of your own way. And it doesn't have to do with anybody else around you. It's literally yourself. You have to get over yourself. Sometimes I don't think it actually involves other people. I think it can involve just you, you know? And I do want to kind of talk about the history of it because soul contracts are predominantly rooted in New Age and modern metaphysics and mainstream traditional beliefs. But it does kind of go back because these beliefs are influenced by concepts of karma and reincarnation found in Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, along with elements from mystical traditions like Jewish Kabbalah and Neo-pagan. But the primary is, New Age and spiritualism, focusing on personal growth, pre-birth planning with soul groups and guidance from spirits, right? But then you also go into Eastern philosophies of karma and reincarnation. And pretty much people say that the purpose is the souls determine their major life lessons, relationships, and challenges before incarnation. And that's the part I have trouble with about, death and dying and going through certain diseases because genetics play a role, so much play a role. You can have a whole family with cancer and then one person doesn't get it. So is that part of their karma? So like their whole family has to deal with cancer. They have to witness all that and then they're like, "Oh, I don't have it. That's odd. I just don't have cancer." Um, I mean, maybe, but do we really know? I don't think we will ever truly know until we pass away, what the real answer is, because we can all kind of just guess and assume in our own thoughts and what we think about it, right? But a lot of it has to do with karmic lessons. I don't think death is like a karmic lesson, though. I mean, to me, karmic lessons are ones where you still need to be living. So, and it's usually about yourself, right? But I did have to look up Jainism because I did not know what Jainism is, and I have never heard of it. But it is an ancient Indian religion originating over 2,500 years ago that emphasizes the path of nonviolence, strict self-discipline, and compassion for all living beings to achieve spiritual purification and liberation. It means that it does not believe in a creator God, but rather than individuals can become perfect, liberated souls through their own actions and by conquering inner passions. Now, I could definitely believe in that. When we conquer our own inner passions or get out of our own fear, our own way of doing things or our own thought process, that can be huge. That can be such a huge karmic thing or depression, bipolar. There's so many mental health issues that people are experiencing nowadays that are not getting the help they need. Even with our food, I feel like our food is contributing to the way we feel, our mental health, the way we look, it's like what we're eating is pretty much trash. Like everything in our food is so bad for us. But is that part of the karmic lesson too? How do we be healthier in this life? As we're using our cell phones and you're watching this podcast from 3,000 miles away. I mean, how is that even possible? I don't know. You think about all of the bad stuff that's coming into our bodies as we speak that could be changing our DNA, but yet we still want to think it's part of our soul contract. I'm not sure. I'm torn with this because I feel like everybody has a path, but I feel like there's so many other factors besides the fact that it's just what we wrote and that's it because of free will. I could choose to not be a medium. I could choose to not do this podcast, but I don't want to. I choose it because it's part of my soul. I feel better when I channel past loved ones and something I was craving my whole life and I just didn't realize. I had no idea until I found it, right? Until it found me, really. I probably would have pushed it off forever until it pushed me so far I couldn't ignore it anymore. But I mean, I think we can all disagree to or agree to disagree because we can all have our own thoughts about it and what we think. One of the interesting things, though, and I know this is controversial because this came from Sylvia Brown, and I used to love Sylvia Brown, but the more I watch her episodes on Montel, oh, it's rough. But I was reading one of her books a long time ago. I'm talking about in the 90s, right? And this stuck with me where she said, when we are meant to die, we die around our birthday. And ever since then, I've always looked to see, like, if I'm at a graveyard or if one of my loved ones passes away, I'm like, oh, how close was it to their birthday? Because then I'm like, that was like their soul's purpose. They were supposed to die then. But I don't really know how true that is. I do feel like some people pass by their birthday, but I don't feel like that's part of the soul contract or that's how they were supposed to die. My grandfather died in January, and he was 98. He had COPD, he had Alzheimer's dementia. I mean, he had COPD for years where he couldn't breathe from his smoking cigars and his smoking stuff like that. And he was in the war, and which I'm sure affected him because he had already battled cancer, overcame colon cancer, was free from that, and so he suffered for a long time at the end of his life. Because we were like, maybe he's gonna live to 100. I don't know. Like this man is not going anywhere, and he doesn't even know who anybody is. He doesn't know where is at, and he can't hardly breathe. And at 98, that's a long life. And for her to say that if it was meant to be, he would pass. Well, he didn't pass near his birthday. Because she was saying in that book, like with like either the same day or the same week, right? But he didn't pass near his birthday. He passed like months from his birthday. So to me, that didn't really make sense because to me, I feel like it was his time. He was 98. I mean, it was past his time. How he made it that long, I don't know. So, I mean, even that I kind of battle with now with my own loved ones. Like maybe she was just saying that to say that. I don't know. I can't say it's not true, but from my experience, it's not because I feel like my grandfather, if it was meant for him to pass, he should have passed near his birthday then. Because at 98, come on. I don't think I want to be alive at 98. But I mean, what do you guys think? What do y'all think about the blueprint, the soul contract? Do you think it is like every part of our life is predestined? even letting go of relationships or bad things happening to us, but what about the good stuff? Like, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. And if you want me to do like a part two on this, I would be happy to discuss it further if it's needed. If not, no worries. But I would love to know your thoughts on what you think about our soul's contract. So let me know. Okay. And y'all have a beautiful day. Thank you for listening in and I will see you next time. Namaste.